Hey everyone, it's Ankylosaur. I hope you're all doing well. For today's video, I wanted to take a look at the debate in the competitive Pauper EDH community over which red partner to pair with Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator. Malcolm himself is one of the more powerful commanders in the format, and sees play in CEDH as well, where, combined with the Minotaur pirate Glinthorn Buccaneer, he regularly contributes to kill attempts on turn 3 or earlier. In Pauper EDH, while there are several other strong partner pairings for Malcolm that people have come up with, including Nadir, Agent of the Duskanel, and Iktekik, Salvage Splicer, the overwhelming consensus is that one of the red partners makes for the strongest deck. Malcolm's ability to produce treasure tokens is especially potent combined with cards that turn creatures into pirates, allowing pingers like Thermo Alchemist and Firebrand Archer to make 3 treasures per activation, generating a ton of mana which can be used to cast more spells for even more damage and treasures. And with a Reckless Fireweaver, or Ingenious Artillerist, type changed into a pirate, Malcolm simply goes infinite, killing the whole table at once, as each treasure turns itself into damage, which turns into more treasures and more damage, on and on until you win the game. There are 6 red uncommon partners to choose from. And while I don't know that I'll be settling the debate on which of these is the quote-unquote best to pair with Malcolm, today I want to take a look at each of them, judge their strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully give you the information you need to make an informed decision on which partner you'd most prefer to run in your own Malcolm deck. So, with all that out of the way, let's talk some partners. First up, we have Elena Kessig Trapper. Elena is sort of the odd one out of the 6 red partners. I don't believe I've ever seen anyone play a Malcolm Elena deck, and unfortunately, I'm not sure if I ever will at a competitive table. While her ability to tap for red mana equal to the greatest power among creatures that entered the battlefield under your control this turn isn't a bad one, Elena herself is a mana or two too expensive as a commander to see much play. Malcolm can help get her out a little quicker with his treasure production, but even so, a 4/3 first striking mana dork is an awkward combination of stats. You kind of want to be battling with Elena, not using her for mana. I will note that, with a mana filter of some sort, and a freed from the real, Elena does make infinite mana pretty easily, which isn't nothing. But there are simpler ways to go infinite in a Malcolm deck, and as the competitive side of the format is all about being as efficient as possible, I don't see Elena making waves there anytime soon. 5 mana feels like simply too much of an initial investment, and if Elena ever dies, recasting her for 7 mana seems nearly impossible. However, perhaps somewhere down the line, someone will make an Elena freed from the real Malcolm concoction that really goes somewhere, and I'll be excited to see it. Next, we have Tago Goblin Weaponsmith. At the time of recording this video, Tago has been seeing something of a renaissance in the format. A number of people lately have been investigating more controlling decks that can repeatedly pick off opposing creatures using their commanders, such as Aranis Street Urchin, Tago Falthus, Floodgate, and of course, Malcolm Tago. Tago takes advantage of Tago's rock tokens by using them to shoot down small, worrisome threats, like the Untappers out of Gretchen, or the various guild mages running around. There are also a number of cards in the deck that care about artifacts, such as Reverse Engineer and Thoughtcast, which will let you use the rocks to pay for or reduce their costs. Tago is a fine Malcolm partner if you're looking for a build that can keep some of the format's other combo decks in check in the mid-game. He can take a little while to get established. Your first rock probably isn't getting equipped until turn 4 or so, but once he gets going, I've been impressed with his ability to dictate the pace of a game. The one drawback to Tago is that his ability doesn't complement Malcolm's in the same way that other red partners do. The rocks are working on a different axis from the pirate combo plan, and while this isn't a deal breaker by any means, it does mean that he's not as obviously synergistic with Malcolm as, say, Breeches or Kedis are, who we'll talk about in later slides. Malcolm Tago is, at the moment, a bit underplayed, but definitely give the two a shot if you're looking for a pirate deck with access to a bit more board control than usual. Next, we have the biggest pirate of them all, Dargo the Shipwrecker. This is a deck that is closely associated with one player in particular, and that's Clay from the Pauper EDH Rules Committee. His build of the deck incorporates banishing that combo lines, as the same zero-cost artifacts that might be sacrificed in the early game to power out a Dargo on turn 1 or 2 can also be used as combo pieces alongside Battered Golem or Steelfin Whale to kill the whole table. The idea is, with a zero-drop artifact in play, you target your Golem or Whale with a Banishing Knack or a Retraction Helix, giving it the ability to bounce non-land permanents for the rest of the turn. Then, you tap your Golem to return a zero-cost artifact to your hand, which you can replay to untap your Knacker, to do it again, and again. Add in a Reckless Fireweaver or an Ingenious Artillerist, and you're dealing infinite damage to the table without needing to worry about Malcolm being in play. Until you get to that point, though, you probably have a giant 7/5 Trampler on the board, putting enormous pressure on the other combo decks and forcing them to use interaction on Dargo, which softens them up to your own interaction to stop their combo attempts, and hopefully runs them out of ways to interfere with your own. Clay's Malcolm Dargo deck is a very complicated and layered version of Malcolm that definitely requires a lot of practice to succeed with. I will admit that I find this version of the Malcolm decks the most difficult to mulligan effectively with, and that is almost 100% from lack of experience on my part as a pilot. There are a lot of intricate things going on in the list, and if that appeals to you, as well as having Malcolm-less combo lines available, Dargo might be the partner that you're looking for. Next is the fastest version of the deck, and that's Malcolm Rograk. Rograk enables a turbo version of the Malcolm Pirate combo deck by turning our little kobold friend into a mana dork, or even a ritual, with the inclusion of 3 cards that otherwise don't see much play in Malcolm: Moonstare Prototype, Springleaf Drum, and Infernal Plunge. Rograk plus any of these 3 cards can enable a very early Malcolm, allowing you to combo off before your opponents have the chance to get set up with their disruption. With an absolutely perfect hand, the deck can even win on turn 1, as I cover in my video on the fastest decks in CPDH. More often, though, you're going to be shooting to win on turn 3, using Rograk and one of the previously mentioned cards to ramp out Malcolm on turn 2, then a Reckless Fireweaver or Ingenious Artillerist on turn 3, plus a Type Changer to turn it into a pirate. The deck also runs a number of tutors, including cards that search up other cards of a certain creature type, which can grab the Velis Vel Type Changers, as they have Changeling and count as all the creature types themselves. So if you don't naturally have everything you need, you can spend turns 3 or 4 fetching up the missing parts, with a win attempt coming on turn 4 or 5. The downside of this deck, as with most all-in turbo strategies, is that you tend to mulligan a lot, looking for an opening hand with combo pieces or tutors in it, so that you can win as early as possible. You also aren't overloaded on counter magic, preferring lower cost spells like Daze, Spell Pierce, and Disrupt to actual factual counterspell. These are great for protecting your combo when your opponents don't have any extra mana to interact with you on turn 3, but greatly diminish in effectiveness as the game goes longer. This makes it difficult to play the control game that some of the other Malcolm decks can, leaving you much more reliant on ending the game as fast as possible. I've played this variant a little bit, and I've recorded a couple turn 4 wins with it in open play, but I've also recorded a number of losses on turns 8+, where I was thwarted early and couldn't grind my way back into the game. It's a style of deck that comes with a certain amount of risk attached, but if you're looking for a version of Malcolm that can take out your pod as early as possible, this is the deck for you. We have two more decks to talk about, and these are the two versions of Malcolm that I see most often at CPDH tables. First up is everyone's favorite little lizard, and that's Kediss Emberclaw Familiar. The Kediss flavor of Malcolm is all about treasure, treasure, treasure. Literally, in fact, because 3 treasure tokens is the number you make on every successful Malcolm attack once you have Kediss in play. The idea here is that you're able to vastly out-resource your opponents as you look for your combo pieces, generating enough mana to advance your own game plan while holding up interaction to slow down your opponents or keep them from comboing off. You can use all the treasure you generate to cast big card draw spells, like Reverse Engineer, or Secrets of the Golden City, fueling up to find the pieces you need to win the game, and then, when you go for your own combo, you'll have plenty of mana available for counter magic against any disruption your opponents throw your way. If this deck has a downside, is that sometimes you can't find any payoffs for having so much mana, so you'll be sitting there with a dozen treasure tokens in play, and nothing to do with them. I've often wondered if the Malcolm Kediss deck shouldn't run something like a Makeshift Munitions, to convert some of those extra treasure tokens into interaction, sniping down land untappers out of Gretchen, or opposing Malcolms, or guild mages, and so forth. Having too much mana is the good sort of problem to have, though, and sometimes it only takes one big draw 3 spell to get you right back into the driver's seat. Finally, we have the version of Malcolm that I currently play, and that's paired with Breach's Brazen Plunderer. Breach's is, like Tago, a more controlling version of Malcolm, and possibly the version that cares least about going for an early combo kill. While you can still get the perfect pirate combo draw and win on turn 4, the deck is really built to grind into the mid to late game. Because Breaches is such a powerful source of card advantage in the command zone, impulse drawing spells and land drops from your opponents each turn, you're content to sit back and steal action from everyone else's decks, running out some pingers to deal damage to the table, and holding up your counterspells to stop others from winning. Then, once you're in a comfortable spot, you can turn one of those pingers into a pirate, and that's when the real fun begins. Let's use a type-changed Firebrand Archer as an example. Whereas in the Kediss version of the deck, a Pirate Archer is only going to make extra treasure tokens, the Breaches variant allows you to make 3 treasures and steal a card from each opponent's deck for every non-creature spell you cast. Hit a non-creature spell in those 3 new cards? You can cast it, deal another damage to each of your opponents, make 3 more treasures, and steal 3 more cards. Depending on the composition of the pod, you can go on a real crime spree here, getting immeasurably ahead of your opponents on both mana and cards, if not outright winning the game by chaining together spells one after the other after the other. The one drawback to Breaches is his mana cost. A 4-mana 3/3 doesn't have the most impressive stats, though he doesn't need to get into combat for his ability to trigger, which definitely helps. But if your opponents are able to lightning bolt him even once, a 6-mana Breaches can be difficult to redeploy without turning a pinger into a pirate and generating a lot of treasures with Malcolm. His ability to turn into a pseudo-storm enabler, though, churning through your opponent's decks while killing the entire table one ping at a time, makes him very enjoyable to play, if nothing else, and he's definitely one of the most competitive partner options available. So, those are the 6 red partners for Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator in Pauper EDH. Of the 6, Kediss and Breaches are the far and away favorites in the current competitive scene, with Kediss fans preferring the lower mana cost and high treasure token output of the Little Lizard Friend, while Breaches players enjoy the more controlling game plan and the storm-style kills of a big Breaches turn. But I will say that the cool thing about Malcolm's red partners is that all of them do have competitive potential, and I've seen all of them except Elena played to some success in the wild. So, which of these Malcolm decks have you piloted? Which are your favorites? And Are there any that I talked about here that you're excited to give a spin? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and until next time, bye!